originally want a disabled actor to play Tyson, and we're basically just like open to whatever the performance is going to be.
Yeah, like I always will wish that Tyson could be played by an autistic actor, but I will also give, like, I don't say this to give like the show an out. I wish that they would have done that, but it's also one of those things that you don't know, like,
Hmm.
if he is. And like this thing is like one of the things that bothers me about social media the last few years or so, ever since 2020 really, is that people understand the concept that if you have like a marginalized identity, that if you play a role, that your marginalized identity will like bring something to the role that you otherwise wouldn't bring, and like people just understand the idea of like wanting to engage in like media or content or whatever made by people like that instead of just by like normal, whatever, quote unquote normal people that don't, that are fine, like the way that those, like the people that usually get attention like that. But it's turned into this thing where like people are like forced, a lot of times they like force people to like say things publicly before they're ready,
Hmm.
because they like have that idea of like, oh, I this is like what you're supposed to want, but like there's a middle ground there between like watching and only liking people that are like straight white like cis people, and then
Hmm.
but and then like forcing somebody to tell you things about themselves that they're not ready necessarily to tell you because they feel like they have to get you off their back because you don't know everything about that person. Like I forget his name. Um the actor who was in WandaVision, um he's been in other things. I think his name is Kit Connor. Um might be remembering his name wrong. Because that's also the name of somebody that's in the Heartstopper show. I think he was in the Heartstopper show. Anyway, one of the actors in the show Heartstopper, which is a like a comic basically about two boys in a romantic relationship. One of the actors had to like tell everybody that he was bisexual, and they literally outed. He had to out himself because people were were like starting this whole thing online of being like, oh, they cast somebody like a straight person to play this character, and so he had to say like, I'm not straight, when he wasn't ready to tell anybody about it, because they like forced him from all of that talk happening. And so I will say, like, I don't want to force anyone on the show to say anything that they don't want to say.
Hmm.
And so I don't know. Like, this is a TV show that was, the two executive producers are both disabled. Um, so I don't want to just think that nobody else in the casting crew would be too. And so I want to at least give like them time to talk about stuff like that if they would want to talk about stuff like that. That being said, if they're not, I would always wish that there could be somebody that is, even if it's not Tyson, somebody else who is cast. I would want somebody to be, because every character is disabled, literally everybody.
Yeah.
There's no character that is like a human person in this world that is like one of the stars, that is one of the kids anyway, that isn't disabled. Um, So I hope that they can do that, but also I understand it's one of those hard things where I understand what Hollywood is like, and
Hmm.
that any of the kids that are trying to do acting, it would be hard for them to. I know they shouldn't be like this, but it just is. That if you tell people that you have like ADHD or autism or dyslexia or whatever, in real life, that you might not get as many roles, because Hollywood is like that. They don't care about children anyway, but they especially, even when you're an adult, they don't want you to almost have like more needs.
Yeah.
And so that is always a thing with Hollywood, is like, I want people to tell us that they have other disabilities going on that wouldn't be obvious just by looking at them, because they actually want to tell us, not because they feel like they have to or they're being forced to, because that does have an effect on somebody's life. And when you're telling people things like that, you should be able to decide you want to do it when you want to do it. Like, that goes for everybody. But that's just one of those things. Like, I didn't tell anybody that I was asexual or autistic for many years. Um, I decided to tell people when I wanted to. Nobody made me do it. I like picked and chose who I wanted to say. And so I just want anybody else to have the same choice, I guess is my point with that. But I will say that I do always wish that Tyson could be played by a autistic actor. Um, but I will also acknowledge that being on a show like this would probably be challenging.
Yeah, especially with like some of the stuff that Tyson deals with are like explosions and water and yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot.
And also, like, that being said, though, some of the kids on the show could be autistic and we just don't know.
True.
And so it's like, it's not like we exactly are aware of that all the time. I didn't know that I was until like 2022 when I was like 37, was when I was like sure about it, where I was like, yeah, no, I definitely am. Okay, I understand now. Just like hearing things that autistic people do and then remembering things that like my dad would do and realizing that I do a lot of those things too. It was like the day that I like turned off the lights in my house and realized that that made me relax, and I was like, oh, I guess I really am.
Yeah.
Because I literally like felt my muscles in my body relax, and then I like lay down and felt really tired because I was finally relaxing. I was like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna keep the lights off all the time now, except for when I have to absolutely have them on. But it took a while for me to figure that, to be sure about that stuff. And so I say that, but at the same time, there could be people like that working on the show, and we just don't know because we don't actually walk around with like your diagnoses from the DSM 5 like stamped on your forehead.
True.
You just don't do that.